everybody, and welcome. My name is Jacob, and today I will show you how to learn literary devices. Literary devices is also known as figurative language, and figurative language is usually a word or a phrase that you use that doesn't have its typical, normal, everyday, literal meaning. You basically use these elements of grammar in an essay or a story, or even in daily life in your conversations with your friends or your family. Today I will show you the 11 different types of figurative language, and those vary from similes to metaphors to onomatopoeias to puns. I can go on and on, you name it. And hopefully the goal is, at the end of today's video, you know how to identify figurative language, how to use them in an actual correct grammatical sentence, and actually know their origin, their meaning, and their purpose. So yeah, sit back, relax, and let's get into it. Okay, so let's get into our video. So the first example of figurative language that I will teach you today is probably not only the most important, but is also the most renowned, the most popular, just because it's so commonly used, and it's also very easy to construct it into a sentence. And that is a simile, of course. A simile is a comparison of two unlike things using the keywords like or as. For example, the weather is cooking like a barbecue. Another example, this beautiful Christmas tree behind me is as bright as the stars in the sky. The next thing that I'm going to show you how to use, number 2, is a metaphor. A metaphor is a comparison of two unlike things without using the words like or as. For example, little snowflakes, daggers poked my skin. Another example, her tears were a river flowing down her cheeks. You are comparing two subjects, but you are not using the keywords like or as. The next one, hyperbole, is a complete exaggeration to make a point, often used to create a humorous or mean effect. Example, the hill was covered with 1 billion flowers. So of course, there's not 1 billion flowers on the hill. He's making the point to tell the intended audience that, hey, there's a lot of flowers on this hill. Another example of hyperbole, like my mom comes in here all the time. I've told you to clean your room 1,000,000 times. She doesn't want me to clean my room 1,000,000 times. It's just I haven't done it, and she really wants me to do it. The next form of figurative language is personification. Personification is giving human-like qualities to a non-human object or thing or animals. So an example is the flower stood tall amid the clovers. The next one is a symbol. A symbol is an item or thing that represents something larger and something larger in significance to make a point or a picture. For example, it is a sin to kill a mockingbird, or it is illegal to run a stop sign. So it's using a symbol to make a point. The next one we'll talk about is allusion. Allusion is making a reference to a part of another work or literature to a historical context. So an example of that is, it felt like we were living in a Harper Lee novel that night. It's telling the reader, oh, this circumstance in this situation is similar to, for example, Harper Lee's books, like To Kill a Mockingbird. So that's what that comparison is referencing to. The next one is also one of my all-time favorites. It's an alliteration. It's just the same consonant sound of every beginning letter of every word. It's usually 2 to 3, typically 3. For example, the friendly fog flirted with the water on the lake. So friendly fog flirted. The next one we're going to talk about is oxymoron. Oxymorons are really cool to use, and they seem hard to construct, but once you really think about, they're pretty easy to use. Oxymorons is when apparently contradictory words appear next to each other. So kind of like jumbo shrimp. Other examples are bittersweet. So you're using bitter and sweet, which are antonyms, but putting them together, which makes an oxymoron. Bittersweet, jumbo shrimp, dark light, clearly confused. So you see the difference in how hard it is to reconcile the two, but that is what an oxymoron is. You're using those two different antonyms and putting them together to make an oxymoron. The first one we're going to talk about is a pun. A pun is very also commonly used, but it's sometimes hard to construct. People get it really confused with other types of figurative language. But a pun is a word or a phrase that usually has a comical second meaning. So you usually see a lot of food puns kind of like, I'm kind of a big deal. You get it? So you're using dill pickle and trying to make it sound like deal. So that's what makes a pun. Another example is I'm reading a book about anti-gravity, or it's impossible to put down. The next type of figurative language is called irony. We all know what irony is. Irony is a contrast between what is expected and what actually happens. So a fireman who's afraid of fire, a policeman who's afraid of crime, a marriage counselor who files for divorce, a doctor who gets sick. So that's examples of irony. And the last one is confusing, I'm not going to lie. It is called the synecdoche. I can't even really pronounce it. It is a rare figurative language, uses one detail of a person or thing to represent the entire person or vice versa. For example, please lend me a helping hand, or she was the breadwinner in the family. So guys, I hope that helped you learn about figurative language. I hope you do know how to use these in sentences. Those were the 11 types of major figurative languages that you're going to see in either literature or essays or daily conversation speakings with your fellow friends who also know how to use figurative language. So that's going to do it for me. Thank you very much. I'm Jacob Wheeler. I hope you enjoyed this crash course, and I'll see you next time.